Please welcome Jamie Peachey.
Hi, everybody. Before I start talking about my favorite subject, I'd like to personally thank my wife, my family, my cohorts, my cats, my puppets, and especially the educators in my life. They are wonderful supporters, motivators, listeners, and I'm the luckiest person to be loved by all many people for my puppet self. So let's start the lights by explaining myself to you. Things about me. My name is Jamie Peachey, if you didn't know. I am the son of Sunny Forsyth and Robert Forsyth. I am married to the most wonderful, patient person I know, Jessie Peachey, and I have 4 sisters and 1 brother. I grew up in the suburbs of Kalamazoo, Michigan. I don't watch football and I don't like it, but if you talk poorly about Detroit Lions, I feel something deep inside. I love and respect the Minions for all the wrong reasons. I am trans, I am loud, I am queer, I am humor-seeking, and at times what I call charmingly annoying. I went to Northern Michigan University with illustration due to my portfolio, the school, and finding myself going to the scale of drawing during times of needs. I knew illustration didn't always feel like the right place at the start. There wasn't enough animation or a relationship with my audience. I wanted to be part of the experience of my art. I wanted to see the laugh, the joy, and the cries. I later discovered I desperately wanted to be laughed at, not to be laughing with my audience. Making the choice to try animation was to find a solution, but it actually led to a lot more issues than I thought it would. However, due to me always picturing myself with my audience in my work, I thought I was making the right choice. I mistook wanting to be laughed with to laughing with my audience. Ooh. Not only did this leave the relationship with my audience out of the solution, it only led to more challenges. Learning how to animate time restraint effective cinematic strategies that I had no idea what they were at the time. Realistically, I began to learn that I wasn't going to be able to tell the stories I wanted to tell in the given time frame, the limitations and the technical skills. I later tried simpler stories, but I was still itching to tell a funny, dramatic story just the way I believe myself to be, and just as funny as I think that I am. Another crippling note was that I could not sit down for a long period of time. I wanted to be moving with my artwork. So I gave up everything at MCAD and I made the furry art of my dreams, and I spent the rest of my life at home with my wonderful cats that I love them dearly. But that's just joking. I'm still here and I'm here today. So not knowing where to go with my practice last year, I went back to illustration. These illustrations were surrounding the experience of not being able to have bodily experiences as a trans person. I felt a strong disconnect with my physical self. I viewed it as a trans thing, but this showed up in uncomfortable conversations with fellow trans people who were able to have deep bodily emotions and experiences. So I was left asking myself, what was wrong with me? And I saw validation and understanding through Judith Butler and Russell Legacy and Munoz. The figure of the skeleton just kind of kept coming up within my work. It felt a part of me. It felt really resonated. The way that I pictured the hinges moving, the way that it moved inside of me, and without my flesh. I didn't really understand my flesh. It looked different, and it kind of looked more like Gonzo. It definitely did not feel fleshy. It felt felty. So these drawings just kept happening, and I enjoyed the relationship that I had with light, and I enjoyed how dynamic it felt, and the control of focal point, and being able to say something with that power. I also had no control with it. I felt that I wanted to use it. I almost felt like I wanted to be in the spotlight. Wink. These went on and evolved and grew as my time here went by, but I kept getting the same annoying questions and critique like I'm in school or something, and everyone kept looking at me like, what does it mean? Who is this? Why are they here? And every time that I was asked that, I got really frustrated at myself, but sometimes at the lovely people who were telling me these questions. Sorry, Zipa. A whole bunch of worms were just living in my stomach, and I decided to hide myself away in Stardew Valley. However, Stardew Valley has an end. What crops do I grow when there's no end goal? This was no longer on my mind, and I was left with this, okay, let's try this again. So I started reaching for the self that I enjoyed the most, which was when I was with my friends and with my cohort. So I decided, like any reasonable person in a grad program, to make a Dungeons and Dragons campaign to see my friends more, to force them to be my friend nicely. For those who don't know what Dungeons and Dragons is, it's a table role-playing game where we all pretend and roll dice, and we may not know how the story goes, but it's a lot of fun. So there was only really one way that this led me, was storytelling. And I made my whole campaign world based on Jim Henson Media and based on his Dark Crystals movie. It was a lot of fun. I got to see all my favorite people all the time, and we made character sheets. We all made our own puppets. We were all revolving around this world. It was a hoot and a holler. So where does that lead me as the dungeon master? Well, it leads me to making puppets for the guys at the tavern, for them to talk to, for them to have a good time, to get them out of trouble when they're doing something silly. So why does this matter to my grad program or anything else? Well, I enjoyed it so much that I really wanted to do more of it. I wanted to see where it would take me with my storytelling, and I ended up falling deeply in love with puppetry. So I thought about doing it for my thesis, and I wanted to get better at puppet making in order to do that. So here I go on this wild journey of learning how to make puppets. And first, it's like, what puppet do I make for myself? Obviously myself, but one puppet's enough, not enough for myself. So I need to make 3 puppets. And a lot of this centers around the good, the bad, and the ugly version of me in a nutshell. This transitioned into character designs. They were textile art forms that I had no idea, and they all perceived how I perceive myself and the different versions of myself that I like and what I don't like. So here they are. This would be Oswald, Weenie, and Victor, and it has been a wild ride getting them here. Um, I think each character have parts of me that I like and that I don't like, because you have to have characters that you like and don't like. So now I'm a textile artist. Never in my wildest dreams would I have been here as an illustrator. Getting to this point was really entertaining and really fun. I learned how to sew. I bought a sewing machine. I broke a sewing machine, and then I broke another sewing machine. It's just been a lot of figuring out how that goes. So here are some highlights of my crazy adventure with textile arts and how fun it's been to learn them and not getting toxic glue smell permanently on all my clothes. For Oswald's textile and his character, I really wanted to highlight the idea of plus-size queers. I felt there was a lack of space for fat queers. So he's an elephant that's full of gestures and throwing his arms in the air out of passionate rants of love, and he's the version of myself that I love the most. He is the version who I am with all my closest friends. And then there is Weenie. He is the longest face for a reason. He's a depressed comedian looking for a quick solution for his capitalistic fear. However, I think a lot of us in the room can agree this a little comfort doesn't really fix that issue. This is the bedrot version of my own self, when my own fears and complicated feelings is too heavy, and the only thing I can think of do is to squeeze a whoopee cushion to like try to get myself to laugh. Like, I don't have effort for a good joke, but I can laugh at a bad joke. And then there's Victor. There's not much on him yet because he has been a complicated fellow, as he is a complicated fellow. Victor is the guy who makes uncomfortable tensions in the room because his tone of voice gets a little too aggressive, and he doesn't mean to. It's just because he ends up being direct. He has a deep distrust in people, as he is pointy. He is jaded as a bird you would not want to get close to. I don't show this side of people because I'm not very kind, and my jokes can be kind of hurtful when I'm this version of myself. But as a puppet, you can say anything you want, which is a powerful tool, and I enjoy that deeply. These are some little friends I've made along the way of learning how to make puppets and learning the medium of everything else. There's Huey, the little goat guy that I've learned to hate. I absolutely don't like him anymore. And then there's just Ickle, whose whole sole purpose is to just store cards and you put your hand in his mouth and he goes, ah. Now, none of these characters really came out of thin air. A lot of these characters were influenced by Jim Henson or Adam Kruger or Hayao Kongo. They all have their own theories, but I really don't want to talk about the Muppet Show as I could here. I want to talk about the works that aren't really talked about, his narrated stories. Storyteller takes place of telling small stories of different folk stories, and they all have different settings and different puppets that elevate the story with one narrator and one dog. This leaves giving the story really handed to this one voice that guides the story very calmly and very beautifully, in my opinion. It talks about character growth and learning lessons that we don't really want to learn, and I think that's something that's really important. Dark Crystal talks about capitalism, imprisonment, and unfairness, and it's something that needs to be talked about continuously. And Fraggle Rock is just a rock. It's just so lovely, and they just want to get radishes and conquer their own problems and learning how to lie and when not to lie and when to do their laundry, and it's beautiful. For Adam, he has been my guiding hand in learning how to make my puppets. He has gone through tutorials, books, and everything else. He is super just helpful in his own journey. He has given me a space to learn the craft when I had no one or knew anyone how to help me at the time. And it was just, he provided me a safe space to make mistakes. And I really deeply appreciate his YouTube channel. For Ashura Congo, I really want to talk about, and it's incredibly important to me. It may seem out of place, but Digimon talks about a relationship between creatures and people that I love and appreciate. They are your best friends that you can communicate your own feelings towards. And having that relationship with my puppets has elevated them as puppets, as a part of me, and taught me to love myself in ways that no one else could. And I love this show with all my heart. So, as I finish up my puppets and as this goes on, I have to do something with them. And I really want to make a story talking about all the issues that I've stated here today. And Dragons for Cars is very silly and corrupt car sleazy man as it goes on. It's been a fun time, but it's still working itself out. And all I know is I just have my 3 puppets and me, and that's really all I need to succeed. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. Yes, Miranda.
What's the ideal way to share your puppets with your audience? Would it be like film or performance?
Definitely performance. Yeah. I want to hear the laugh. I want to feel the laugh. Maddie?
I noticed that you kind of started on this, one of the things you talked about that started you on this journey was this Dungeons and Dragons. And then also being that Jim Henson is one of your kind of main influences. Can you describe the role of collaboration in your work? Because it seems like, especially for performance, that's going to be important. So how do you have plans to kind of work with people, and can you describe that?
Yeah, it's a lot of putting my email in their email and going, hi, do you want to do a puppet show? I can't pay you, but I can make you laugh. And I really enjoy working with people. I'm a very people person. I can't I can't work by myself. It's incredibly lonely. I get very sad. And working with people just gives me a way how to like share and them share, and that active sharing becomes part of the art. It becomes to, oh, I want to keep this good and true because I love that relationship so much.
Follow-up question. So do you have any interest in kind of creating puppets that are based on different elements of their collaborators' personalities then?
Oh yeah, I definitely. Once I get to know someone, I think of like 3 different puppets, and I'll have them all just in my tiny little brain in their backstage room, and they're all running around, and it's like, what version of you are today? Hi, Jen.
Can you tell me a little bit about the relationship between comedy and the writing that might be part of like how you might be in performance with the puppets? I'm thinking there is like kind of a long history of people who have like a puppet who says, as you mentioned, like some of the things that, you know, it's easier to say, those kinds of things. And I was wondering if there's like a history of comedy that you might be tapping into. You mentioned storytelling, so I'm wondering if comedy is part of this.
Yeah, I think there's a history of tying with comedy into allegory, and I think using comedy with allegory makes allegory less heavy. And I think that self-reflection ends up being, instead of like a sad allegory feeling of like, oh, I've been through that, that's hard, to ha 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 ha, that wasn't fun. And I think that kind of comedy is treasurable, and also satire is amazing. Yes, Elizabeth.
What's the hardest part of pattern making in your puppets?
Winging it and trusting winging it and trusting the process. Because sometimes a pattern, you have an idea like, hey, this is going to be a circle, and it ends up being like a fish, and it's not a circle.
Thank you so much. Please give a round of applause.